Carol, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I am very well. This is actually my first interview I didn't flake on. I usually just say I'll show up and then I don't.
Well, you're here. That's wonderful. I
I
appreciate
know.
that.
I was doing a live stream and I committed to every one of my subscribers that I would do this interview. So I would have too many people upset with me if I didn't show up.
Wonderful. Well, we're super happy that you showed up, and that's really. I totally understand how these type of things can be difficult to do, but you're
Yes,
gonna. I think with the content and the things that we're going to talk about today, you're going to be serving yourself and serving a lot of other people in a very powerful way. So
I
that's
agree.
fabulous. Great. Well, let's jump in. You wrote a book called "The Son I Almost Gave Away."
Yes, I
Incredible.
actually have it here.
Yeah, an incredible title.
Right
Can you tell
there.
us? There it is. Look at that. Can you tell us about it?
Well, so my son, he's 20, he just turned 20 actually, this year. But when he was born, he had a brain injury that led to some really severe behavioral problems. And so in the book, I kind of talk about what the first 7 years of his life looked like. So he was on the autism spectrum. He would have been about a ASD level 3. He was verbal, but he was also what you would consider schizophrenic. So he was extremely violent and dangerous. So we had to pretty much do like 4 hour rotations holding him day and night. You couldn't leave him unattended ever. And at the point when he was about 7 years old, I had a newborn baby that I was also trying to care for, which makes it kind of impossible if you're holding a newborn and you're trying to nurse and care for this newborn. If you're trying to do a rotation with a 7-year-old boy that is trying to kind of assault everyone he comes in contact with, it came to the point where we were looking at having to institutionalize him just to keep the rest of the family safe. And at this time, I was in naturopathy myself, and I knew a lot about orthomolecular medicine, and I knew a lot about brain injuries and all of that kind of thing. But I always was under the understanding that if they had a hypoxic brain injury, which was the type of brain injury he had, that there wasn't a lot you could do about it. And then I started thinking about everything that I had been learning about the way that our brains are designed. And I started questioning that belief that he would be like this forever. And I really just prayed. And that was a really big part of this. And I started searching my soul and my knowledge base for if there could be possibly a solution for his behaviors and the direction his life was going, if there would be any way to reverse this. And I had learned about Truehope, which I actually have it right here, the one that I take. I had learned about Truehope just when I was in practice, and I had received a lot of emails from different people that had been having success stories with it, the Empower Plus formula. And what I decided to do instead of actually institutionalizing him was to give it kind of like a really solid try of using orthomolecular medicine, cognitive therapy, and a whole protocol that I created for him to see if we could at least get the behaviors to be manageable. That was my goal. Just make it so we don't have to give him over to the state kind of thing.
How old is he at this time when you
So he was 7.
okay.
Yeah, he was 7 when I put together the protocol. And I put him on everything and I did everything with him pretty much overnight. So I used the Empower Plus, the maximum dose you could use, and a bunch of other things that I talk about in the book. And I would say within 6 weeks, not only was he a different child, his physical appearance changed. Because part of the thing is when you have a really severe brain injury, a lot of the muscles in your face get very tight. I don't know if you've seen a person that has a really serious disability, but you can tell certain features of their face are tight. They hold their jaw structure differently. his entire facial structure changed as his brain healed because certain muscles that were meant to be loose became loose, so on and so forth. Within about 6 weeks, he was physically different and he was a different person. But within a year, he was completely reversed all of his symptoms.
That's remarkable. So you were kind of going through, what kind of led you on this journey to begin with was, you were stepping in and kind of researching the conventional model, and in so many different conditions, there's no answer in any book when it comes to conventional medicine. So
Yeah.
you've obviously, looked at what's happening within your family emotionally and decided that there has to be a way, there has to be an alternative that you're not finding. And it's an incredible journey that you've kind of tried these different things. And it's important to note that it's not just Empower Plus that you used. You were using types of therapies, and you were using orthomolecular practices as well. So it was a whole holistic approach to
Yeah.
helping your son, right?
Everything that you could think of, from the environment in the household to, we switched his whole diet over to not be including, all the chemicals and the things that you have in processed food. So everything that I knew of that you could do to help a person heal at every level, we did that all at once. But I know for sure that the Empower Plus was the really big thing because of how many people that I have worked with and known personally that that's the only thing that they did, and their lives completely transformed.
Yeah, that's just incredible. I
Mm-hmm.
think that I've seen so many people reverse so many different things, taking these products, and so many different pathologies that people have had for many years and have had no answer from the conventional model, and they've tried this broad spectrum micronutrient, and incredible things have happened. So you said within 6 weeks you really started to notice some big kind of changes with your
Huge.
son. Huge changes. Yeah.
Huge.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what else
Well,
did the family notice?
I'll tell you the most touching story of this is the most memorable for our whole family because we had a zero contact, zero communication rule with him because of how violent and dangerous he was. So the older children weren't allowed to interact with him because it would egg him into violence, and he would come at them with weapons and all kinds of things. So it was very dangerous for them. So unless we had given consent for them to engage with him, they really had to leave him alone. And this one particular day, so we're talking 6 weeks into his treatment roughly, he asked if he could play tackle football with my older son and a bunch of his friends in the field across from our house. And I mean, this is a child who 6 weeks ago wasn't allowed to be looked at or spoken to because it was so dangerous to interact with him. And we let him go into the field and play tackle football with a bunch of boys his age. And it went beautifully. He ended up taking a face dive a few times, but it was absolutely, I was watching him out the window with his dad, and we were just in shock that he would take a face plant into the ice and he wouldn't even hurt anyone. If you would have looked at him the wrong way 6 weeks before that, you would be probably going to the hospital or something like that. So
Yeah.
it was just
Wow.
that miraculous how much of a difference it made and how fast it changed his chemistry in his brain.
Incredible. As parents watching something like that, like how how were you feeling?
Oh, I was in shock. I was absolutely in shock. I never thought that I would see the day when he would be allowed to play with another child, not to mention actually get physically hurt in the process of this play and not lash out in aggression. I mean, that never even was in my wildest dreams of possibility for him. So it
Yeah,
was,
that's remarkable, and just having the ability to go outside and play with your peers is
yeah.
such an important developmental stage. And yeah, that's such a remarkable thing to witness in such a quick period of time
Oh,
after
I
trying
know.
something really new right away.
especially because 6 weeks before this, he was still in 4-hour rotations on our lap as a 7-year-old boy. Like, can you imagine, if you have a 1 or 2-year-old and you put them on your lap for a timeout, that doesn't feel too weird. You're just, hey, we're going to sit here and have a moment. He was 7 years old and that was his life up until that point, because that was the only way to keep him safe.
How was this transformation with your other children? So how many children have you got at this time when he's 7 and he's starting to make these changes?
Okay, so we had the older two and a newborn, so there was 4 in total at that time.
And how were I suppose, older kids' experience with these changes?
Well, I would say my oldest son, Taylor, was the most profound, because Taylor always had so much patience with him, but he also was the one on the receiving end of a lot of Raphael's abuse.
Hmm.
And so for Taylor, it was pretty amazing, because now he was able to play with his brother, so that was incredible. They actually got to do things together, and he didn't have to worry about that he's going to come at him with a knife or a shovel or something crazy.
Yeah.
He got to just have a brother. It was incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone in the house was able to relax a little bit more and just, rather than being on edge and on guard, start to enjoy the completely different family dynamic.
It was insane, because our whole household operated like this military style. Every moment we were in war, it was a battle zone. We were literally preventing fires and putting out fires. That was what our daily existence was about, was just navigating all of the landmines. And within 6 weeks, that was complete history.
And then
That
you
was
said,
over.
after a year, his his um his personality and his person was completely turned around.
It really was. I mean, there was very little. His intelligence, he has a genius level IQ as well. So what comes with that didn't go away. So he still was absolutely brilliant and remarkable. But the things that made it impossible for him to have relationships and navigate life, those symptoms were completely gone. He was able to interact with his peers, have a normal life, have healthy, a ton of self-control. I couldn't believe that he went from being this child that if you touched his paper airplane, he would be looking for a weapon he could hurt you with, to a year later, he had more self-control than any of my other children. So it was pretty incredible. And he, of course, at the time was the only one that was on the Truehope supplements.
And I'm sure if you didn't believe in miracles before that, then now you do.
Definitely do. Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you notice anything if you missed a day, or if you ran out of the product? Did you notice anything, like even in the last, I don't know, 13 years? Have you noticed anything if the protocol was to change?
Okay, so Raphael, he didn't actually stay on it past that first year. So he had his transformation, and then there was a whole bunch of things that we went through as a family that we ended up not being able to afford to continue taking that or anything else at the time. But I can tell you that I was in a relationship recently with someone else who had been taking the Truehope supplement. And I'm not sure if you've heard of the disorder DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, which used to be known as multiple personality disorder.
Okay.
This individual, I was in a relationship with him for about 2 years. And when we first started interacting, he had very, very, very severe paranoia and all different kinds of almost like schizophrenic type of symptoms. And I put him on this. And every time that he tried to get off of it, his complete personality would go back to how it was previously. And one of the reasons, we've actually recently parted ways, but so much of it had to do with the fact that he wasn't staying on the supplement. And I couldn't kind of be responsible for that anymore. But for him, it was, as an adult, he needed to stay on it to stay stable. And I've known a lot of other adults as well that just even missing a week can pretty much put them back to where they were before. And it really depends on how much their neurology and that really relies on it. For me, I'm pretty stable. So I notice that if I go periods of time where I'm not having it, it's not just going to be an instant drop off where I'm not doing very well. Where I've known other people where, boy, if they stop taking it for a week, they're really in serious trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, every condition and every issue, every person is going to be different in regards to their ability to uptake these nutrients, how much they need,
Exactly. Yep.
how frequently they need to have them. So, absolutely, everybody's different. Um,
Yep.
what had you mentioned a couple of things, but can you tell us a little bit more about what you had tried before Empower Plus with your son when
I
he was
hadn't
younger?
tried anything, to be honest with you, because I was so programmed to believe what I had been taught, and that is with the type of brain injury he had, which was hypoxic brain injury, that the brain damage was permanent. And so that all of his symptoms, they weren't just, your classic autism symptoms in that they came from a brain injury, and that's why he ended up that way. So I really hadn't tried anything else until this, because I didn't think that there was anything that could be done. I was always told that it's just keep them safe, navigate each day one day at a time until you can't do it anymore, kind of thing.
Sure. Remarkable. Yeah, I think I've I've watched quite a few of your YouTube videos on your YouTube channel, and it's really wonderful as well. We'll make sure that it gets linked in. It's called Mindful Divergence, and you say some really amazing things about Truehope Canada in some of some of your videos.
I do.
Yeah, about the business and the struggles that we've had with Health Canada in the past. And to
I
quote,
know.
yeah, and to quote one of your videos, um, you said, "I owe my son's life to Truehope," and for me, this it's not the first time I've heard this from somebody. I've heard stories like this in the past at shows, at events, from people who communicate with us through Facebook and etc. You know, I've seen the science. I've used the products myself, and I know it works. And there are
It
just so
does.
many people who are just not aware of your story and this incredible history of this company. And I think more and more people should know about it. Do you have anything to tell people who may be on the fence about, engaging with True Hope and trying Empower Plus for anything from, we could call it maybe mild stress on one side, and then, more significant neurological conditions on the other side? Because I've seen people benefit all across that spectrum. What would you say to people who are maybe hesitant, who are heavily reliant maybe on conventional means, but there will come a point from all of those people where they will recognize that maybe those pharmaceuticals are not working for them in the long term, and then they're going to look for an alternative route? What would you say to those people?
Okay, so I kind of have a bit of a loaded answer to that question.
That's good.
And that is, True Hope has the potential for completely transforming your life. However, it has to be the right formula. And I want to explain something about that. So for myself, this one is the methylated formula that I take, the methylated advanced. And the reason that I take the methylated one is because I have the MTHFR defect, which a lot of people on the autism spectrum have, quite a few individuals with bipolar, things like that. So there's two different formulas that they have for the Empower Plus, and you have to be on the right one. And this is, I do have to mention this because it's so important, that if an individual that has the MTHFR defect takes the other formula, not the methylated one, they will become a folic acid toxic, which is very, they'll go downhill instead of improving. And so one of the things that I recommend for people that are on the autism spectrum, or they have any type of psychiatric diagnoses like bipolar, is to find out if you have that defect or not. I found out for myself just through 23andMe. I think it's like $200 or something, and you can get your genome done, and you'll find out if you have the defect. And if you do, you take the methylated one. And if you don't, then you just take the regular advanced formula. And it is such an important thing to know about, because I've known people that have become folic acid toxic that have had the MTHFR defect and took the wrong one. And so we don't deal with folic acid very well when we have that defect. We have to have the methylated one. And so thank goodness you guys have that, because you haven't, Truehope hasn't always had the methylated formula. And so it's really amazing that you guys even offer that. So it just shows how much you guys are keeping up with the science of every time we learn something about what our brain needs. And I go back to your guys' website, you're already on top of it. So it was incredible when I found out you guys had that. So that's the one that I take for myself.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's so important that we're keeping up with, exactly as you say, the research and the science, and making sure that our manufacturing process and the formulations that we're putting out is able to help as many people as possible. And you are spot on in regards to people. It's a really important thing to be taking responsibility over your own healthcare, and doing something like 23andMe and doing like a genome sequence to find out, what genes you do and don't have is important for so many different things. But yeah, the ones you mentioned, super valid, and taking that step towards your own assured healthcare is very important. And we have our micronutrient support team, which you can always contact. Anybody can contact, whether they're taking whether they're brand new and they're already taking some pharmaceuticals and they're interested to figure out what they can and can't take, and how they can work with their doctor and those drugs to ultimately try and come off them and be non-dependent on these drugs. But yeah, it's really important that you don't just stop what you're doing and and jumping into these. It's the biochemical balances of the body and the brain are very, very complex, and working with
Yes.
health professionals is very important, because you say taking the wrong products for the wrong person can set you back rather than set you forward.
Yeah, you need to understand what it is that your body is telling you. And I also like the fact that you guys do have that toll-free phone number. So for people that are taking, mood altering drugs and they're just not able to handle that anymore, and they're thinking, okay, I've got to get off this stuff, I have to figure out another solution. They're not just kind of thrown off the deep end saying, here, buy our supplement, good luck. You actually have a process of being engaged and involved with people directly and monitoring their progress and really assisting them. And like you said, between, Truehope and their family physician coming up with a plan to be able to do it all safely, monitoring that process, because it is a lengthy process. So many people think they can just, oh, I'm just going to stop taking my medication and switch to Truehope. That can be disastrous. I mean, there is a right and safe way to do it. And I love the fact that you really sit beside this individual through the whole process and monitor that it's being done safely. And there's not too many supplements in the world that offer something like that. It comes with some risks to do that. So it's pretty incredible that you guys do that.
Yeah, I've been working with the company for about 3 years, and it's so obvious and apparent that this company is about helping people, and it's not about just selling supplements and making money. And the micronutrient support and toll-free number is just massive examples of that, and
Yeah.
how whenever you are making any type of significant change in your life, especially when it comes to getting your health in shape, you shouldn't be going at that alone. And having a
No.
support system, whether that is your friends, family, and health professionals, it's so important that you ask for that help, one, and two, again, you're taking your own healthcare into your own hands and educating yourself and making sure that you're serving your body in the best way possible.
Definitely, especially when the individual is weaning off of any type of mood altering drug at all. That is a very dangerous period of time for them when a lot of things can go very south. And so the fact that the company is both wanting to be involved, but like you said, engaging with the family and the support network during that time is so critical, because of the fact that their brain is going to be changing so rapidly, that this is a very sensitive time. And I don't think enough people pay attention to the period of time. People focus on getting off those drugs too much, and they don't focus enough on how to do it slowly and safely. um, that there's not huge repercussions for it. And I think a lot more focus needs to be put on to that. If it is going to happen, there is a very safe way to do it, but it's not overnight, and I don't think that's spoken enough about.
No, you're spot on. That transition is so important. And I think probably a big hurdle for that is perhaps the medical model, the conventional medical model, where it's probably not quite understanding the alternatives and the kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, the kind of desperation some people have because some side effects can be worse than the
Oh, I
drugs
know.
themselves.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
it's definitely got a little bit to do with the fact that it's not spoken about, and that transition from getting people off medications to being drug free is probably not taught in medical schools because it's kind of all about, like, symptoms, diagnosis, drugs, and then not actually reversing it the other way around, which is an interesting concept. But
I
it's
know.
not.
And the thing is, they're not taught about getting them off because there was no intention to ever get them off once they go on.
Yeah, that's a very
That's the
very good point.
downfall.
It's a good point, and we could do a whole show on that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Do you have any success stories outside of your home? I know you mentioned an ex-partner of yours, but I'm sure, like, considering your YouTube following and the wonderful work that you do, and I'm sure that you've been talking about Empower Plus every day since the
Oh,
tackle
geez.
football time.
I don't have any specific ones because there's so many. There's just so many. Everyone that I have known that has ever tried it and stuck to it has had some type of transformational experience. The unfortunate thing that I find is that it's not covered by healthcare. And so for the people who need it most, it would be lovely if we could see something come into the picture one day where it's just kind of like a prescription. If your doctor says you need it, you get it in Canada, and there's no issue when money gets involved. And anytime you have a supplement where the individual has to be able to cough up those costs themselves, we run into a bit of a problem because a lot of the times the people who need it most, they don't have access to it. And so that is a really unfortunate thing. So it'd be awesome if we could see government make some change on that. But considering the side of the fence they sit on, I'm thinking chance of that happening anytime too soon or not
Yeah,
too
that
likely.
would be miraculous. And I think if you were in government and you were looking at the long term costs of healthcare, actually bringing in something like that in the long term would do significant
It would
wonder.
be amazing.
Yeah,
It would be
it
amazing.
would be wonderful. That's cool. Yeah, this would you recommend? Is there a specific type of person, do you think, that kind of comes to mind that could try Empower Plus?
Boy, the most profound changes I have seen has been actually with the people who have the most severe issues going on, the ones that are at the point where they don't want to live anymore. They've tried everything, literally every cocktail combination. They're maxed out on their doses of everything. Psychiatrists are saying, there's really nothing else we can do for you. This to me, for those individuals, is a shoe in. I'm certain it would make miraculous change and pretty quickly. So for those people, it's a no-brainer to me to try this. Then there's everyone in between. So for the individuals that are on the autism spectrum, like myself, finding out if you have the MTHFR defect, and if you do, getting on the methylated form, and if you don't, getting on just the basic advanced formula. For autism, it's huge, huge, huge. I recommend it for everybody on the autism spectrum. For depression, for bipolar, schizophrenia, I mean, geez, I've just seen so many transformational experiences across the board with mental health. It's, to me, orthomolecular psychiatry, which is really what this is it should be the first line of defense, not the last, but unfortunately that's not the way that this world is designed at the moment.
Yeah.
But how for everybody really that is not doing well mentally or emotionally, I would say try it for a minimum of 6 weeks at the dosage that would be recommended through working with somebody at Truehope, at least for 6 weeks every day consistently before deciding if it's for you or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific diagnosis, but I experience stress as just like everybody else. So I take it when I know things are getting stressful. And the big example would be like big family holidays where it's going to be like go 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 and lots of stuff happening, or if I know I've got a busy work week, and I know if I miss a day during that period of time, I will get agitated. I will get frustrated a lot easier than I usually would. So,
Yep.
so I notice that on a quite subtle level. I think a big part of taking something like this is being aware of how you're feeling, and beforehand and afterwards. So having a kind of really conscious awareness of your mind and your body. That's a really big important part, especially if you were going to do something like this for like 6 weeks, to really have a commitment to it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then as I said again before, like the spectrum of people who are experiencing just like stress, and then all the way at the other end where we have much more significant neurological disorders. It can just do absolute wonders, and getting that dosage is very, very important. And again, we have micronutrient support teams and support that can help people along the way. um Carol, your story, like, it's quite remarkable. It's actually a miracle, and I was super lucky to come across your YouTube channel and enjoy a bunch of your videos. I really appreciate the work that you do there, and I think everyone should know about this particular story, because if this product, which is incredibly well researched, you can go onto truehopecanada.com, and under the research and science section, you can see it done by a disorder, whether it's ADHD or bipolar or schizophrenia, and there are specific peer-reviewed studies for each one of those disorders. So if you're quite sciencey and you like to check that out, I think that's important that you do that, because if you're recommended a supplement and they don't have their science and research on their front page of their website, then it's probably not a product that's had a lot of backing behind it. So
Yeah.
that's why we're very, very different here at True Hope.
Mm-hmm.
But if this very well researched product can help your son, it can do so much for so many different people. How can we help you spread your message?
Oh boy, that is a good question. I think the big thing is I try to do as much education as I can through my Mindful Divergence YouTube channel. So just, directing people over there. I actually have to finish doing my second draft of this book, as I had taken a year off to write it. And then after it got completed and loaded on Amazon, I never went back to do all my final edits, but it is on Amazon if you want to look at it with a few grammar errors and that kind of thing in there. But I wanted to make one other point really quickly. And when you had asked me about who I recommend this for, I also want to recommend it for anyone that has a brain injury. So we're talking about you've been in a car accident, your child was born with a hypoxic brain injury like if they had a placental abruption at birth or something like that. Brain injuries of any kind, or spinal cord injuries, I see a lot of positive results because of the way that these nutrients were designed to repair the genetic material that's been damaged. I don't want to just focus too much on psychiatry with this, because there's the actual physiological brain injuries itself that it can do miraculous things for. So I wanted to point that out too, that if you've been in a car accident or you have a sporting injury, post-concussion syndrome, all of that kind of thing, I would try it for those things as well. You would have to probably go a little longer than that 6-week trial to see if it's working, but I definitely recommend it for actual physical brain injuries too.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point. And in the next couple of months, we're going to be doing an episode with Maurice Lukowicz, who's an ex-professional Canadian hockey player. And his whole story, his whole journey is about head injury and concussion. And
Yes.
how when he retired, he had these deep, dark, depressive moments, and it seemed to take over his life. And he took these products, and he describes it. And it's not the first time I've heard it described like this, but this fog gets lifted.
Yep.
And it gives people this ability to start thinking and feeling and behaving a little bit differently than they did with this cloud of fog over them.
Definitely.
So I really appreciate you bringing up the point of traumatic injury, because it's something that a lot of people experience, but we have been under the idea that the brain is kind of stuck and it doesn't change, but we obviously know with like neuroplasticity and the way that our brain is and our body in general is just like this phenomenal biocomputer that, if given
It's
the right,
miraculous.
it's incredible. And there's so many examples of people recovering from things that, you know, were said to just not be possible. And that's the wonderful blend between science and mysticism, which, you know, probably keeps a lot of people still, you know, doing experiments and, you know, pushing the
No doubt.
research even further.
Yeah.
um can you tell us a little bit more, just to finish up, a few? I know you've got some other projects. I know you have more than your YouTube channel, so can you tell us a little bit more about the other projects you've got going on?
Okay, so the two very big ones that are going to be like many years long projects is one is I'm in the process of actually creating a global diagnostic tool that individuals can go through for autism independently. Because to get an autism diagnosis, let's say in Canada or in the US, you're looking at between $2,000 to $5,000 to go through the diagnostic process
Wow.
as an adult. And so what I'm trying to do is simplify this so that way they can go through a criteria off my website, a massive questionnaire that has been created by hundreds of autistics globally. The only autistic people are involved in the creation of this diagnostic criteria. And you can print it out and take it into your family doctor for a referral to a psychologist. And what we're hoping to do is have the criteria recognized within the field of psychiatry and the DSM and all of that, so they can say, hey, okay, we can skip a lot of the steps that we would have to put this person through because this is a recognized criteria, and hopefully save them some money and a lot of time to get to their diagnosis. So that's the first thing we're working on. We have hundreds of autistic people across the world working on creating this questionnaire right now. So it's going to be a very long process. We have people in beta testing for that at the moment. So that's a big one. And if anybody watching this would like to participate in the creation of it, if you believe you're autistic or you have a diagnosis, you can contact me. I'm guessing you'll probably have my email address somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'll put everything
Yeah,
in the show notes.
they
Yeah.
can contact me for that. The other thing is we're in the process of creating a documentary called Autism Undiscovered. And it's about what happens, what the consequences are for autistic people that go through their whole lives not having been diagnosed or having been misdiagnosed with other psychiatric ailments like bipolar or ADHD, you know, usually heavily medicated, when the truth of the matter is they're on the spectrum and that they're just wired a little bit differently. And so telling the stories and letting individuals that kind of fell through the cracks have a platform to share their stories. So we're working on a documentary for that as well. So that's a many-year long project too.
That's wonderful. So a documentary coming out, and I really love um, the alternative diagnostic tool that's actually being created by individuals that experience autism. I think that is incredibly powerful and incredibly unique in regards to how these things are being diagnosed, because yeah, they're obviously created by not by people who don't have autism,
Which is kind of interesting, but
which is
it's
yeah.
understandable at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they certainly have to do something, and I hope that
Yes,
that what you create is able to go mainstream and
me
could really
too.
really help a lot of people who do go undiagnosed and who live 10, 20, 30 years not knowing why they experience some of the things that they experience. I think that
Yeah,
we're doing people a big disservice if they're living a big part of their lives undiagnosed or incorrectly
it's
diagnosed.
yeah, it's quite tragic where it lands them. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to be part of the community that I'm in when you see just how many lives are lost because they don't know where they belong. So it definitely drives me to do something.
Yeah, and having and being part of a community and having a tribe is one of the main things that makes us human. And
Absolutely.
to not have that can feel incredibly scary, as you say, and quite inhumane.
It very much. Yeah.
Well, Carol, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I learned a heck of a lot, and I'd love to get you back on to talk about some of the other projects that you're doing, and
Absolutely.
dive a bit deeper into some of the things that we're talking about today. How can people connect with you and get hold of you?
So I would say the best way to connect with me is probably going to be through my YouTube channel, through Mindful Divergence. You can also email me at hope at the son I almost gave away abbreviated. So TSI, whatever the rest is. I forget.
Sure.
You'll have it linked.
I'll put it in print on the show notes. No problem.
Yeah, just email is best for me, or messenger as well through Mindful Divergence.
And people can pick the book up on Amazon, right?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon.com. I don't know if it's still on Amazon.ca.
Awesome. And if there are a few spelling mistakes, let's not worry about that.
There's a couple, yeah.
There's a couple. That's fine. Well, Carol, thank you so much again. And thank you, everybody, for listening. This is Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.